So up here we have Tuji Sanusi.
Hi.
We have Landry.
Hello.
We have Natalie Lisinska. And we have an unscheduled guest.
This is Zoe.
Hi Zoe. How are you doing? You were awesome. Okay, do we have any questions for these two films? Because I have a feeling everyone had some really strong emotions about these two films.
I don't know if that's what I want to say, sorry. Okay.
Hi. What I want to say, I really like Repossessed Home, and the reason why is because I like the way when you mix the comedy with the horror, and then the way you deal with all these scenes and the performances from, it's really very, very good, and then we had so much fun watching it.
Great, thank you.
And I always like that when a director or a script supervisor, director firstly, mix and switch that feeling of the genre. And that's something that that is really very well done. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Let's mold that sleepy comment into a question. What was the point of how did you mold comedy and horror so well?
Yeah.
It went pretty well.
That's a tough question. I guess the intent behind the film was to deal with some pretty heavy themes in kind of a way that felt in a light approach, but it was kind of like a way in, I suppose, since it is about, I guess this idea came from a sort of general disdain of capitalism. And then I was watching a bunch of horror films, and this character of the real estate agent kept popping up and then just sort of disappearing, and you never hear from them again. And I was just kind of like, what about that person? Where this like family would just go through hell and back, or maybe not back. You know, they might actually just like Amityville Horror, where they all perish, and it's just like, where did this person go that just sold them into this house, and how do they feel about it? And they benefited from it, I guess. So it was taking that character, seeing what their mindset would be, and then just kind of like playing around with it and seeing how, because it is so absurd, it is really ridiculous. And so using the horror genre and using elements from it and kind of stylistic effects to kind of skew their proportion to make them comedic, kind of to that effect. Yeah, I hope that kind of answers that. Cool.
Questions? We've got one here. All right.
This is to the actors. How is it to take direction in two different lights, horror or comedy? Because you had to be both.
Oh,
so how did you take that direction?
It was just Shirley. I don't know. I mean, I think Matt was really great in communicating, like, okay, this moment is a little lighter, and then this is when we start to go into the darkness. We were also working under, like, it's a big movie for how little time we had, so it was a lot of like, now the darkness now, and it's like, okay, darkness. So I don't know. I think it's Matt. Like, he's a strong director, and a lot of it was there on the page. It was a strong script as well, and it was very clear where the comedic beats were, and then when it's like where, and it starts to go somewhere different. It was very clear. And when it wasn't, he was like, oh, well, what I meant by that was...
With that voice.
Yeah, exactly, with that voice. What about you?
Well, I think I go from being just mainly regular Kitty Parker, and then at the end, I'm possessed. So that's my dramatic change.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nailed it.
I have a question too. It's a pretty small question. Why did you want to make it funny? It's not very often that you see people kind of trying to make scary things funny. So yeah, like was it just that you guys clearly have like some sort of like good vibes between each other where you clearly are bouncing off each other really well? Or was it like an idea that you already had from the beginning?
Yeah, it was always a comedy from the beginning. I had a couple of people ask me that, and I didn't really know the answer right away. It just seemed obvious to me that it should be a comedy because I just think it is just like such a ridiculous concept.
And you're very funny.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and like I was saying before, it just seemed like a kind of easy way into the topic because keeping it in this kind of light, bubbly, innocent way, and it sort of equates to the feeling of why I think capitalism kind of has this insidious effect where it feels light, doesn't really feel that bad or feel like it's doing damage, and then when you kind of like turn around the corner or have prolonged effects of it and really dig deep, then you can start to see kind of like the underbelly of it, right? And so it feels light and fun off the top, and then once it starts getting in deep and she can't really get out of this like spiral that keeps going, that's when it turns a little bit darker. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for Tuji, and once again, I'm exercising my mic holding abilities here. So, I have a question for you. I've followed Dimitris Katsimiris' work for a very long time. Really huge fan of your director. And what was your thought when you read the script? I am super curious.
You know, reading the script and actually like acting the part was really hard. I mean, like it deals with rape and racism and abuse. So it was really hard, and I remember going home from the shoot. I was exhausted. I was really like that part took a lot. You know, like actually when we were shooting the movie, two reporters came in, and they came in right as we were actually practicing, rehearsing the rape part, and where like the main character started going crazy, and they thought it was real, and they wanted to call the cops, and they were like, "Are you guys okay? Should we call the cops? Like, is everything okay?" We're like, "No, it's just part of the movie. Like, come on, this is not part of the movie. This is like more than part of the movie. We should call the cops. You guys are not okay. Like, are you guys getting abused, threatened?" We're like, "No, like this is actually part of the movie." And it took 25 minutes to get them to believe it was part of the movie. Like, we're like, "No, don't call the cops." Yeah, so I mean, he's a brilliant mind. I mean, like his previous works, I mean, you can see it, and I admire it.
I do as well. Do we have another question?
Yes. Am I allowed to ask 2 questions? I have a question for each of the groups.
Yes.
Okay. So first, I'll ask a question to Matt. My name is Matt too. I just want to say that you really scared the crap out of me at the beginning. That first shot with the sound design, like I thought that there was gonna be a monster to go out and like chase the sun, and yeah. So I was wondering how the sound design was, like working with that. Did you already have that planned out, and then working with whoever was doing the sound design? How was that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear that. I think that was the intent, to kind of set it up in a way where we don't really know the vibe of the film off the top, and because it could just be a straight horror for the first minute maybe. There's kind of like a weird like comedic things going on. What's he saying? Like, oh, what about breakfast, whatever. And yeah, and I guess just sound design, like I was saying before, just pulling things from the horror genre and kind of sprinkling them throughout. Just to kind of really strengthen the voice of like what this film is, with balancing comedy and horror.
And then my other question was, how was it working with an actress, and this is directed towards you, sir, about the rape scene, and how was it working with an actress like in a rape scene? Comfortability between you and her and such like that.
I mean, it was weird, but she made it okay. I mean, it sounds weird just saying that. Yeah, I mean, it was weird. It was strange and like, it was exhausted. I mean, I know I keep using that word, but it was like, and I was thinking like, people actually rape people? Like, how do you do it? Because it was hard. Like, I mean, we were just acting and I was tired and I was exhausted. And I felt like, I just felt weird. I mean, it took a lot.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? What do you think Demetrius was trying to say with fake news?
I think there's always three sides of a story. Your part, my side, and the truth. And I think fake news just is trying to find what the truth is. I'm like, don't always believe whatever you read, don't always believe whatever you see. Ask questions. Just always ask questions. And ask fair and balanced questions. You know, because I feel sometimes like, I mean, even in your personal life, your best friend comes up to you, tell you a story about his girlfriend. You're most likely to take his side because it's your friend. Rarely do we actually ask questions that matter. So I felt like you just ask questions that matters. That's what the truth. That's what I think he's trying to convey.
Any more questions? Yep, we've got, of course. You're famous, like at this point, you know?
Hi, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
For both movies, questions. So for Repossessed, loved the movie. The comedy and the scary part of it, you succeeded at that. For me, personally, sorry. It was really scary and extremely funny at the same time. Question that I found is at the end of the movie, the main character says, I just do my job. Is she making her job, so she's working for the possessed things in the house, or is it just something that I'm seeing that's not there?
Yeah, I think that was just hinting toward her that she's just doing her job as a real estate agent. She just has to sell houses, that's her job. And there's no details about what kind of houses. She's just happened to fall upon this thing that is quite lucrative and goes with it. Because she is in sort of a desperate position as the sole breadwinner of her family, and yeah, I think I made it that character be a single mother who's struggling, because that is a quite desperate position to be in, yeah, I think just it's a justification a lot of people use to do things that might not be in the best conscious. I think there was in my pitch for Bravo or whatever, I quoted the Nuremberg trials where they where essentially Nazi war criminals were on trial and said they just were doing their job, right? And it worked. And so just taking that notion of just doing your job and then applying it to how that still manifests in our society, I suppose.
Thank you. And to the fake news as well, there's a question. What made you pick this film? What made you want to make this film, act in it? If it's such a hard and it was pretty
exhausting.
Shocking.
Yeah, exhausting. You know, when I read the script, I was conflicted. I was thinking, can I picture myself doing it? Do I really want to do it? Well, I feel like as an actor, however hard the story is, someone's got to tell it. And if someone's going to tell it and tell it right, if you could do it, why not you? So I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to go for it.
I have a question for Matt and Natalie, actually. So I found that this character, Shirley Parker, was actually quite goal-oriented in the sense that I find that often a lot of female characters that are written are the object of affection, but not really very strong characters, as in that they don't have like driven goals, they don't have tangible things that people can root for. And in fact, if as a filmmaker or as a festival director, it's one thing that I'm always bothered by is the lack of clear vision in writing female roles, because honestly, a lot of writers are men. So talk about this character in you know, however much depth you want to talk about, and how much fun maybe it is for you to have a character like Shirley, who has like tangible goals and is actually a strong character. Like she's just in control. She's boss.
I'll say a couple things first. I have the same frustrations, which is why I wanted to write a female character on her own. And I also really love Annette Bening in American Beauty, and that just kind of was like the original inspiration for this. I suppose that character, at least, just kind of like her like scrubbing the window, the "I will sell this house today," that kind of thing. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, preach, man. Like, oh,
Yeah.
It's so rough out there. It's getting better. Weirdly, I find that as I get older, the parts are getting more interesting, which I did not expect. I thought it would be the opposite, but yeah, I mean, this role was a gift. It was awesome. I mean, Repossessed Homes definitely passes the Bechdel test. Yeah, I think it's a part that very traditionally could be, she has lots of masculine traits, if you will. I loved the scenes with the kids, especially the first one where we're all in our jammies, and it's a really beautiful arc. It's almost like a circle, really, because she starts with the kids, and it's so homey and maternal, and it's like loving family. And then she goes on this like super dark spiraling journey, but then comes back, and the last time you see her, it feels like she's ready to let it all go, except she's gone too far, and now her kids are possessed. But it does feel like she comes full circle, which is it's a really beautiful journey to take a character on, it's like she learned from her lesson, and she tries to come back, and well,
Oops.
Did that answer your question?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yes, it did, but I have a follow-up question now. I'm sorry.
Do ask.
Okay, so I mean, in both films, we see very strong female leads, very strong goals, and I do appreciate that. And by the way, I know that everyone here is not Greek, but Lana is actually one of really, really notorious actresses in Greece. So she's phenomenal on screen for a reason, because she's a really great actress, and Natalie, of course, is a great Canadian actress. So I guess my point really is about, I've lost my train of thought. No, yeah, my point is really about the goal orientation of a character, and mainly, as I was talking earlier about like, so you said that as you're getting older, the roles are getting more interesting,
Yeah.
right? And I find that to be the case because, but you mentioned masculine traits, right? So
Traditionally.
Traditionally masculine traits.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to misquote you there. And I find that there's a sort of problem with that, even that statement, that we and I've used it as well, and I often find that we have ascribed control. And both characters in both films that were, you know, are in total control at all times, you know? And I think that that's probably what is missing from a lot of films, because if you look at, for instance, Titanic, she's just whimsical. She's just brushing between options. This
But that was
man
how
or
long
that
ago
man.
now, though, right? I mean, if you look, I was just telling Matt today about the series Killing Eve by Phoebe Waller-Bridges with Sandra Oh, who just won the Golden Globe. I mean, if you talk about control, like those two characters are like both of them are so goal-oriented. Both of them are they are so in control of their lives, and they're not letting anybody get in the way. One of them's a serial killer, but still she has goals. She wants to kill people. I think it's getting better. Titanic was like 1993, you know?
98.
So, sure, great. Well done. So I think that, you know, as Taylor was saying before, that the more women who are behind the camera, the more women who are producing, the more women who are writing, the more people who are writing wonderful roles for women, I think it's started. Now that it's started to steamroll, I think it's become unacceptable.
But when you give the women the power to have these goals, doesn't it now open itself up to such a diverse range of women that we see on screen?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I'm sure that when you walked into tonight, you were not expecting to see a film like Fake News, right? It's crazy, actually.
Yeah, I think one of the first meetings I had with Natalie, I asked her straight up, I'm like, do you think this is an anti-feminist movie? And she was just like, no, not at all. Like, please, no, don't think that at all. Because I didn't want to tread water that I was like unfamiliar with, and I was nervous about writing a character that was outside of my experience, and like painting that character in a potentially bad light. But it's just dealing with human nature, and to say anybody can't access any of those things at any point is just so limiting. And it's like 2019, you know, so we can just figure it out.
So yeah, I also, like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people always want female characters to be strong and nice and relatable and likable. And it's like, man, come on, like if Harvey Keitel and Jack Nicholson and all those guys can be, and they can be so horrible, you know, like we were going through the golden age of TV and the anti-hero with Tony Soprano and Mad Men, and it's like we're finally starting to get to the place where we can let women be unlikable. And I think that's the next frontier, is like, sure, like let them be in control and let them be strong, but let them be unlikable, let them be three-dimensional, let them be the anti-hero, because that's when it gets really interesting. Because it's allowing, it's three-dimensional. It's getting to see the dark side of women, the side that's not beautiful, the side that's ugly, and that's what's interesting. Because we're all working really hard to look beautiful, but let's take a look at that process and how hard we're all working and what's behind that. You want to speak to it?
I just want to give you, Natalie, I just want to give you a compliment and say you're really talented and you have like a really good range, and the kind of things that you were doing on the screen were pretty awesome, especially with the dancing and some of the other stuff. And I just want to say that when you get really big, we're going to be able to say we saw you in this picture that Matt cast you in. And even bigger than you are. We're going to be able to say, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, Jordan, who was the bloody guy in the shower and also produced this film, he's a good friend of mine, and when I sent him the script because I wanted to play that role, and I hadn't cast Shirley yet, and it just was like instant for him. He's like, oh, this is Natalie. And I was like, and then he sent me like her demo, or just like I saw her in Orphan Black, spoiler alert, watching her die in a carburetor, and I was like, yeah, that's
It's been out forever.
yeah, exactly. I know, yeah, and so it just worked out. Yeah, no questions.
Do you have any more questions? And that concludes Midnight.
And shout out to Rob again. This is great. Yeah.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks for trekking out on one night in this frigid. Great. Thanks, guys.
Can we get a photo of you guys?